Good morning. Welcome to the Senate Finance Committee. Today we will be hearing 2 bills and work sessioning 3 bills. And committee manager or Mr. Thorley, will you please call roll?
Senator Dennis.
Here.
Senator Kiekefer.
Here.
Senator Goycochea.
Here.
Senator Hammond. Senator Ratty.
Here.
Senator Severs-Gansert. Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Dondero-Loop.
Here.
Chair Brooks.
Here. Please mark the others here when they arrive. And we will start with, our agenda today has the 2 bills, 3 work sessions, and then we'll have public comment at the very end. Public comment can be accessed by all the links that are on the agenda, or going to the Nevada Legislature website and going to the Nellis portion of the Nevada Legislature website, and there is a banner at the top where you can log in and make comment at the end of this meeting on the phone. We'll get started today with Senate Bill 47, and that is on behalf of the State Treasurer's Office. It was referred to and heard in Committee on Government Affairs, and we will go ahead and hear that right now.
Good morning, Chair Brooks and members of the committee. I am Zach Conine. I have the pleasure of being your Nevada State Treasurer. During the 31st special session, the Nevada Legislature passed SB 4. SB 4 permitted the State Board of Finance to issue interim debentures if the balance of the state general fund was insufficient to meet future obligations. The provisions of SB 4 are set to expire on June 30th, 2021. Senate Bill 47 makes the provisions of SB 4 permanent and slightly modifies the process to ensure greater checks and balances. Upon expiration of the provisions of Senate Bill 4, the state will have no mechanism or ability other than calling the legislature into special session to borrow money in cases of an emergency. Senate Bill 47 puts a permanent tool in Nevada's toolbox to address financial crises, whether caused by severe economic downturn, public health emergency, or other extreme extenuating circumstances in which the state is able to pay its bills. Nevada is only one of 4 states with a biennial budget process, which makes it challenging to respond efficiently and adequately to evolving economic conditions. Senate Bill 47 will provide the state with a level of flexibility to ensure that general fund appropriations made by the legislature can be fulfilled in an economic downturn without taking significant losses in the state's investment portfolio. Senate Bill 47, much like Senate Bill 4, permits the State Board of Finance to issue not more than $150 million of interim debentures through the following steps. Step 1, the State Treasurer determines that the balance in the general fund is insufficient to meet upcoming obligations. Step 2, the Treasurer notifies the Interim Finance Committee of the amount of the insufficiency and transmits a request to allow for the issuance by the State Board of Finance. And Step 3, the Interim Finance Committee has 15 days to consider the item and deliver a resolution establishing the maximum amount that may be issued. If the Interim Finance Committee does not consider the item within the 15-day timeframe, the approval is automatically processed and the request to issue is sent to the State Board of Finance. While it will be utilized only in limited emergency circumstances, we believe Senate Bill 47 is necessary to ensure the state has the tools it needs to respond efficiently and effectively in times of crisis. With that, happy to answer any questions on Senate Bill 47.
Thank you, Treasurer. Do any of the committee members have any questions on Senate Bill 47? I see Senator Vice Chair Dennis has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in previous to this, when we've had situations where like in the past maybe 10, 15 years, have we never had to do this? Like have we always just gone into a special session
Treasurer Conine, for the record, to my understanding in the past, what has been done is if we get real close to that cash line, the state will take some of its long-term investments and sell them at a discount. We'll lose money on the trade or lose money compared to what we could have earned in order to make that cash crunch. But there has been no mechanism in history for that kind of emergency buying prior to SB4. Which makes us different than a lot of other states where there is some sort of mechanism, some sort of sandbox where a parachute can be deployed in cases of emergency.
So you're saying that the difference then this time is that we wouldn't have to sell off stuff and take a loss, that we'd be able to do it in a different manner, right?
That's correct, sir. Treasurer Conine for the record.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Dennis. Any other questions from any of the committee members?
Mr. Chairman.
Raise your hand. Question that way. There you go. Thank you. Sorry, I can't even hear who it is. Senator Kiefer.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Mr. Treasurer, as I recall, and as the sort of introduction to the bill or the Legislative Council Digest summarizes, in Section 4 of the special session bill, and this bill eliminates the expiration of that by sunset, limits the debentures to a note, bond, or line of credit agreement. Is that so? Are those the three mechanisms that would be available under this authority?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, that's the intention, right? So at time of issuance, we'd work with the Board of Finance, as we do for all issuances, to figure out what the most effective way to borrow that money would be. I think functionally you'd look at a line of credit because it's a cash flow issue. So you'd be dipping into it and then repaying it as soon as possible as opposed to a longer term issuance. But I think the flexibility is important because, as you know, cost of issuances can shift pretty broadly amongst the different categories of vehicles.
So do you not think it limits it to those three, or does it limit it to those three?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, I believe it does, but I know Tara Hagan's on the phone, and I'd like to clarify with her. She's our Chief Deputy Treasurer and smarter than I am on most everything.
And me.
Good morning, committee members. Tara Hagan for the record. Yes, that is correct. It would limit it to simply those three types of issuances.
Okay. I appreciate that. And as a follow-up, I don't think I fully understand what Section 4 of SB4 from the special session did, which authorized the delegation of the authority to sign a contract for the purchase of bonds or to accept a binding bid for the schedule of bonds to an agent who is designated to fix the interest rates. Who is the agent in that case? Is that the sort of financial institution we're working with?
Tara Hagan again for the record. Yes, that was a piece that should the state be able to issue, I'm forgetting exactly what it is, but it would be different kind of issuances. And yes, that's exactly right. It would be using a third party transfer agent, similar to what we do for some of the other bond issuances that we have.
Okay, so but normally it would be the treasurer or someone to that effect, or chair who signs for those issuances, and this delegates that authority to that third party. Is that right?
Yes, for this one, because it would be it kind of like a line of credit, but if the state issued short-term commercial paper, so if the state set up a commercial paper kind of issuance, it would allow kind of this rolling ability to both issue, buy it back again, issue, mature, and so that would be an agent's ability. First of all, it would still have to be the State Board of Finance that would authorize that and the maximum amount, but it would kind of continue that issuance is what commercial paper does, just from a short-term liquidity perspective.
Okay. And then, I think more as a statement, and I apologize for just thinking about this, Mr. Chairman. So ultimately, this would process functionally the same way a 15-day work program would with the interim finance committee.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, you all are more familiar with the interim finance committee process than I am, but that's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Maybe more just as a statement. I think I appreciate legislative oversight and the need to have a voice in this process. I worry that using this 15-day work program process whereby it's by default approved really gives the entire legislative oversight role to whoever the chair of the legislative interim finance committee is. If that person decides not to have a meeting, they basically get to approve it themselves. And I think it may be for something, if we are in a point where we don't have enough cash to pay our debts, it would probably behoove us to require the IFC to get together to approve this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, this is Wayne Thorley, Senate Fiscal Analyst. I can respond to Senator Kekeffer's question regarding the 15-day IFC approval process. So you're correct, Senator. This bill would mirror the language in this bill is similar to the language for the 15-day approval process for work programs, where the Interim Finance Committee has 15 days from the day that the work program is transmitted to the Secretary of the Interim Finance Committee to take action on the work program. And if no action is taken by the IFC during that time frame, then it is approved. So this process, it would be very similar if this bill is passed. If a request is submitted to the IFC under this bill, the IFC would have 15 days to respond or to approve or deny the request. And if the IFC does not either denies it or does not meet within those 15 days, then it would be deemed approved.
Thank you, Mr. Thorley. Treasurer Conan, I have just a question. Since these tools were made available in Bill 4, the 31st special session, have they been used at all?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, no, they haven't, which is a great thing. But I am of the opinion that one does not take off a parachute simply because one hasn't had a plane crash.
Thank you. And do we have any further questions from any committee members? All right, it does not appear as if we have any further questions on Senate Bill 47, so we can go ahead and close the hearing on 47, and we can go ahead and open up on Senate Bill 68.
Mr. Chair, this Senator Dennis, are we going to do the for and against and neutral? No.
Mr. Vice Chair, thank you for once again slowing me down. I skipped that last Monday morning. I skipped that as well. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, we will. So with no further questions and from the committee, we'll go to the phone lines and see if we have any testimony in support of Senate Bill 47.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
I am, just like I did last Monday morning, I am going to wait just a minute because I might have scared folks off by moving on. And so if they did have a comment, they might have to call back in.
Thank you, Chair. Broadcast standing by. Thank you, Chair. The public line is still open and working, and however, we have no callers at this time.
All right. So do we have no callers whatsoever calling in? And
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So we don't have anyone on the line in support of the bill. I'll I'll again see if anyone is neutral and given just 1 second to see if anybody wants to pop in since we skipped that process.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Chair. We are currently on support, opposition, or neutral testimony on Senate Bill 47 at this time. If you would like to call in and press *9 now to take your cue, that place in the queue, that would be wonderful.
Well, it appears as if there is no interest whatsoever in Senate Bill 47, Treasurer Conine. No one's called in support or in neutral or in opposition to the bill. So with that, we can close the hearing on Senate Bill 47 this time for real and move on to Senate Bill 68. Senate Bill 68 is also on behalf of the State Treasurer's Office and was referred to Government Affairs. And Senate Bill 68, if you would like to go ahead, Treasurer Conine, and present the bill, appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. Once again, this is Treasurer Conine. I was actually a little surprised that our bond conversation didn't yield more interest, but I suppose we'll have to wait for future returns. Jumping into Senate Bill 68, the Treasurer's Office is charged with a number of critical state functions, one of which is the responsibility of the investment of public money. This includes all investment and accounting activities related to the general portfolio, the local government investment pool, or LGIP, and the Permanent School Fund, the PSF, as well as oversight of Invest Investment Advisors. Senate Bill 68 strengthens Nevada's current investment statutes by increasing the impact of the Nevada Capital Investment Corporation on public school funding, ensuring greater participation from local school districts, and expanding the state's investment vehicles. Senate Bill 68 accomplishes these goals by making the following changes. Section 2 of the bill increases the transfer from the Permanent School Fund to the Nevada Capital Investment Corporation, or NCIC, from $50 million to $75 million to generate additional funding for public schools. The Nevada Capital Investment Corporation is administered by the State Treasurer's Office and operates the Silver State Opportunities Fund. The Silver State Opportunities Fund invests dedicated capital in Nevada's businesses and does so with the primary goal of generating greater returns for the state's Permanent School Fund. The Silver State's Opportunity Fund secondarily seeks to increase economic development and employment in the state. Under NRS 355, Spot 280, the state treasurer is permitted to transfer up to $50 million from the Permanent School Fund to the Nevada Capital Investment Corporation. To date, these investments have generated $32.3 million for the Permanent School Fund and $12.8 million in interest payments directly to the distributive. Section 2 of the bill increases the amount of this transfer to $75 million, which will further increase investment returns to support funding public education in the state. Pivoting to the other sections of the bill, under existing law, school districts may apply to the Treasurer's Office for a guarantee agreement where money in the Permanent School Fund is used to back the payment of debt service on bonds which are issued for school construction. The state's larger school districts generally bond for new schools on their own. However, this guarantee is critical for smaller, more rural districts to help finance school construction. Sections 3 and 4 of the bill increase the total amount by which the state treasurer can issue bonds that are guaranteed by the Permanent School Fund upon request from school districts from 40 to 60 million. By increasing the cap, smaller school districts can more greatly utilize the state's Permanent School Fund and encourage additional school construction in areas in need. Finally, Section 1 of the bill allows the office to invest in reverse repurchase agreements. In a reverse repurchase agreement, or a reverse repo, the state, as the investor, owns a security which a banker or dealer purchases under an agreement and sells back to the state at a specified date and agreed upon rate. Reverse repurchase agreements can be used as a cash management tool to avoid liquidating a security prior to its maturity date in order to meet an unexpected or immediate cash flow requirement. This would provide the state with an additional liquidity tool should the need arise for an overnight or ultra-short-term loan. These agreements are highly regulated, performed by third-party custodians, and tailored to match the specifics of the state's statutorily required high-quality securities. Much like the changes of Senate Bill 47, these would be used in rare and extenuating circumstances. This concludes my presentation. I thank you for your time and consideration of Senate Bill 68.
Thank you, Treasurer. I appreciate that. Do any committee members have a question for Treasurer Conine or his team on Senate Bill 68? Senator Kiefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I remember very distinctly when we allowed this transfer from the State Permanent School Fund for this Corporation for Public Benefit. Can you talk a little bit about where those investments stand, how successful has the program been, and what types of benefits you would expect to see and the need for the additional investment?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, thanks for the question. Yeah, NCIC is a relatively small piece of business as far as public awareness, but it does some really great work for the state. We've had a 6.5% net annual return to the Permanent School Fund for the year ending June 30th, 2020, a 9.7% gross invested rate of return. NCIC, since its inception, has invested $44.6 million of the initial $50 million. 32.3 in interest and principal has been distributed back. 32 Nevada-based companies have received investments since the fund's inception in 2012. We currently have 24 active investments, and the investments are in 15 of Nevada's counties, which totals $717 million invested in Nevada and its partners through, of course, leverage and the multiple effect that happens there. Supported 2,470 Nevada employees with an average annual wage of $83,878, which is 26% higher than the national average wage in 2019.
Sounds like you might have been prepared for that question.
We do like talking about things we do well. Treasurer Conine, for the record.
And then is there an average size of investment? If you've made 24 active investments, would another 70 or another $25 million in investment capacity, would you be able to equate that out to another potentially 12 investments, or what's the average size of investment that gets made?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, I think that's a fair assumption to make. As with any sort of fund like this, what you're looking for is opportunity and risk-adjusted return. I can certainly turn it over to Tara Hagan if there are any restrictions I'm not thinking about. But functionally, we like to have it be diversified. I think you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, although thus far all of our baskets have been nice.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Treasurer Conine. Would you please define the State Permanent School Fund for those of us, not me, but those of us that may not sit on education or be aware of that?
Of course, Treasurer Conine, for the record, I'm going to give this the old college try, and then feel free to turn it over to Chief Deputy Hagan in case I miss anything. So the Permanent School Fund serves effectively as the corpus, the amount of money that doesn't ever get spent for education purposes in the state. And then, of course, the Permanent School Fund pays off into the distributed school account, which goes out. As of the last time I looked at it, which is a couple of days ago, we had about $471,401,765.33 in the Permanent School Fund, of which fixed income made up about 40% of that fund. Treasury's pooled cash was about $29 million. We had $207 million in various funds managed by Vanguard, and of course the $28.7 million remaining in NCIC.
Okay, I'll let others ask a question if they have a follow-up on that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Loop. Thank you for the answer, Treasurer Conine. Senator Reddy.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that. I'm new to this committee, so just the general purpose of the State Permanent School Fund, is it a cash, it's a big chunk of money we have for schools but don't spend for schools. Is it a cash flow tool? Is it a maximizing dollars because we can make some short-term investments on it because we've got cash sitting in the bank? I'm having a hard time understanding what it is.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, I'm going to turn this over to Chief Deputy Hagan to talk through the specifics there, just to make sure I don't misspeak. Tara?
Good morning. Thank you, Treasurer. Thank you, Committee. Yes, so the Permanent School Fund is a little bit from the Treasurer's perspective. We manage the investments. The Controller manage sort of all other aspects of it. In terms of the money that's received in the fund, those are court fees, cheating, some other miscellaneous fees that fund it. But it is, to the treasurer's point, what we could deem a permanent fund. So constitutionally, the core or corpus cannot be spent. And in terms of interest, then any interest does need to be sent to the distributive school account. So pursuant to the Constitution. But like I said, the core cannot be spent.
So essentially, it's an endowment for education that is funded from other revenue than the typical revenue that we use for schools.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Grady, for putting that down into very simple terms. Appreciate it. And are there any other questions from any other members of the committee? Senator Kiefer, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Treasurer, can you talk a little bit about why, from your interpretation, the current prohibition on reverse repos is in statute, and what the effort is right now to get them into place, and whether you think it would be an important tool moving forward, and whether, frankly, you have the sort of bandwidth in the office with your size to effectively use them?
Treasurer Conine for the question. Thank you. I think reverse repurchase agreements fall into two groups of functionality. The functionality that we're talking about is the use of a repurchase agreement in order to generate the cash flow we need to not sell long-term investments in a short period of time, right? An overnight, a 2-day period. There's another function for reverse repo agreements that our office does not have plans to use, and I think this is where the capacity question that Senator Kiefer comes up. You can actually use reverse repurchase agreements not in the way that we would, but you could use reverse repurchase agreements, and I think historically there's been discussion about them, to try and juice the returns of the portfolio, to effectively invest money that the state doesn't have, create almost leverage on the portfolio. That's not our intention with this, and our move here is to give us that short-term cash flow mechanic as opposed to trying to juice investment returns. I think when you start getting into that type of universe, you run quickly into the capacity issues you mentioned. We simply don't have the staff for it, right? Our investment team is smaller than this committee, and doing that poorly would be expensive. So like a lot of things that the Treasury could do to try and juice returns, we don't, because obviously our purpose first is to not lose money, and our second purpose is to not lose money, and our third purpose is to make a little bit of return. So those reverse repurchase agreements, of course, would be highly regulated in the state's investment policy, which is controlled by the Board of Finance.
So do you think the prohibition that was in statute originally was due to a contemplation that a treasurer may try to do the latter than the former in terms of the examples you outlined?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, I'm actually not familiar with the legislative intent there, and wouldn't want to speak to it.
Is there anything in the statute that restricts the use of, or anything in the bill that restricts the use of the reverse repos to the short-term financing tool for cash flow purposes, as you described? And would you be amenable to that?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, I don't believe there is anything in the bill that addresses that specifically, but we would absolutely be happy with any amendment that got us closer to our intent there.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kiefer, and thank you, Treasurer. Any further questions from any members of the committee? It does not appear as if we have any further questions for the treasurer or Ms. Hagan. And thank you very much for walking us through that. Now we will go to the phone lines and see if we have anyone calling in support of Senate Bill 47.
Thank you so much, Chair Brooks. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time. Would you like to wait just a couple moments to allow those watching online to call in?
I will wait just a moment and see if they call in. Or maybe maybe the treasurer just doesn't have anyone that wants to talk about the bill today.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, we often find that we leave the public speechless.
We are currently taking testimony on Senate Bill 68. If you would like to dial in to provide testimony, please do so now and press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Doesn't sound like we have anyone in support of the bill. Do we have anyone in opposition to the bill?
Thank you so much, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
There are no
If there is
callers.
anyone wishing, there are no callers in the queue at this time at all.
So it sounds like there's no callers in opposition. Is there any callers in neutral?
Thank you, Chair. If anyone would like to provide any testimony at all on Senate Bill 68, please dial in now and press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Well, it sounds like we have no callers in support, in opposition, or for neutral. And so with that, we can, and no further questions from the committee, we can close the hearing on Senate Bill 47. Thank you, Treasurer Conine. Thank you, Ms. Hagan. And thank you for your whole team for walking us through these. We appreciate that. So that takes us to our next agenda item, which is a work session on, we have work sessioning 3 bills today, starting with Senate Bill 9, then we'll move to Senate Bill 35, and then we'll have Senate Bill 58. And so I think we will start off, Mr. Thorley, will you walk us through Senate Bill 9, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, committee. Wayne Thorley for the record, Senate Fiscal Analyst. Senate Bill 9 was heard by the committee on March 8th, just a week ago. Senate Bill 9 creates an exemption to the state licensure requirement for investment advisors who solely advise one or more qualifying private funds. These are funds not registered with the Federal Securities and Exchange Commission as either an investment company or a business development company. The bill further requires that to be eligible for the exemption, the investment advisor must meet certain criteria, meaning they must manage private fund assets of less than $150 million. And they must not be required to be registered by the Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as file any required reports with the Securities and Exchange Commissions, or file any required reports by the Securities and Exchange Commissions with the Office of the Secretary of State. Testimony was provided on the bill by Lieutenant Governor Marshall. She testified that the intent was to update state law to match federal law, as well as the law in 23 other states. Lieutenant Governor Marshall indicated that the overall economic impact of the bill would outweigh lost revenue to the general fund, and that any fee established pursuant to Section 4, subsection 1E, would also offset lost revenue. There was no testimony given in support of the bill. There was no testimony given in opposition to the bill. Ms. Erin Houston from the Office of the Secretary of State, who is the Securities Administrator, did provide testimony in neutral. She explained that the fiscal note submitted by the Secretary of State's office reflected projected foregone license renewal revenue of $12,375 in both FY22 and FY23, and each fiscal year thereafter. Administrator Houston offered testimony that to improve clarity as to the intent of the fee authorized in Section 4, subsection 1E, language could be added to that subsection specifying that the fee is a renewal fee, as that tied to the Secretary of State's office's fiscal note on lost revenue, if that was the sponsor's intent. No amendments were offered or provided. There is a fiscal note, as I mentioned, by the Office of the Secretary of State. which indicates a foregone revenue deposited to the state general fund of $12,375 in FY22, FY23, and each fiscal year thereafter. However, depending on the fee set pursuant to Section 4, subsection 1E by the Secretary of State's office, there may be no fiscal impact to the state general fund. The bill, SB 9, becomes effective on July 1st, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Thorley. Any questions or comments from the committee members? Senator Dennis.
I don't know if we have any other questions. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Thank you. With no questions or comments, I will take a motion.
So the motion, I think it would be just to approve, right? No, there's no amendments.
Wayne Thorley, for the record, Senate Fiscal Analyst. That's correct, Senator Dennis. There are no amendments that were provided or offered.
Okay, so that would be my motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion from Senator Dennis and a second from Senator Dondero Loop.
Yes, sir.
All right. All in favor of any comment on the motion? All in favor of the motion? I guess we, because we're doing Zoom, we'll do a yes or a no by roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wayne Thorley again for the record. Senator Dennis,
Yes.
Senator Kekeffer,
Yes.
Senator Goycochea,
Yes.
Senator Hammond,
Yes.
Senator Ratty,
Yes.
Senator Severs Gansert,
Yes.
Senator Cannizzaro,
Yes.
Senator Dondero Loop,
Yes.
Chair Brooks.
Yes. And
Motion carries.
motion carries. And do we need to assign a floor statement in this bill?
Mr. Chair, Wayne Thorley, again for the record. Yeah, if you would like to assign a designated committee member to give the floor statement, that would be helpful for staff.
Senator Dennis, could you do that, please?
Yep.
Next up, we have Senate Bill 35, and Mr. Hartz, I believe you'll be walking us through that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Brooks, members of the committee. Good morning. Senate Bill 35, which revises the provisions relating to the Private Investigators Licensing Board, was heard in committee on March 8th. As you heard, Senate Bill 35 eliminates the Fund for Private Investigators Licensing Board in the State General Fund, and instead requires the Private Investigators Licensing Board to deposit all money that the board receives, except for fines in certain circumstances, in banks, credit unions, savings and loan associations, or savings banks in the state. The bill was introduced by Mr. Kevin Ingram, who serves as the executive director of the Private Investigators Licensing Board. Mr. Ingram explained that the board is a self-funded licensing entity and is currently located budgetarily under the Office of the Attorney General. The board's budget is considered a non-executive budget, insomuch as that it is not heard as part of the governor's recommended budget. Although it is within the state general fund and the state accounting system. Mr. Ingram indicated that SB 35 would allow them to remove their funds from the state general fund and open an outside bank account. There was no additional testimony in support of the bill. There was no testimony against the bill. There was testimony provided in neutral by Ms. Tara Hagan, Chief Deputy Treasurer of the Office of the State Treasurer, who explained that her office had been asked by the Fiscal Analysis Division as to whether there would be an impact to the State General Fund if the Private Investigators Licensing Board's funds were removed from the State General Fund. Ms. Hagan explained to the committee that the impact would be in lost interest earnings attributed to the board's average daily cash balance. The lost interest income was projected to be approximately $31,000 over the 21-23 biennium. In response to a question, Ms. Hagan clarified that the board would retain any interest income for its own use once it began depositing its licensing fee revenues in an outside bank account. There were no amendments offered on the bill or as the bill was heard in committee. There were no fiscal notes on the bill as well. Section 2 and Section 3 of SB 35 becomes effective on passage and approval for purposes of the board establishing a outside bank, credit union, savings loan, or savings account, and then other administrative tasks needed to be performed by the board. And then Section 1 of the bill, which removes it from the State General Fund, becomes effective on October 1st, 2021. Mr. Chairman, if the committee wishes to approve this bill, you could either approve it as you just did or a do pass motion. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hartz. Senator Gocochea?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hartz, I guess, and it kind of came up when we heard this earlier, and I just didn't ask the question, but they're still a state agency, even though they would have their own account. If for some reason they either overdrew it or overexpended it, would the state then be on the hook to cover it?
Senator Gocochea, like most state licensing boards, they, while they are a state entity, there is no mechanism other than, I suppose, if the legislature wanted to provide them an appropriation, there is no mechanism otherwise to provide them funding. They are essentially an enterprise fund and are required to maintain their own financial accounting such that that event doesn't occur.
Thank you. It sounds like we're covered. Thank you, Mr. Hartz. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Gocochea. Any other questions or comments on Senate Bill 35 from any of the other members of the committee? Seeing no questions, I would entertain a motion to do pass.
I move do pass.
Have a do pass from Vice Chair Dennis.
Second.
Second from Senator Ratty. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, can we take roll?
Senator Dennis,
Yes.
Senator Kiekefer,
Yes.
Senator Gocochea,
Yes.
Senator Canizaro,
Yes.
Senator Ratty,
Yes.
Senator Dondera Loop,
Yes.
Senator Hammond,
Yes.
Senator Severs Ganser,
Yes, did you hear that?
yes, thank you. Chair Brooks,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Hartz. Could I sign that floor statement to Senator Gocochea? Our last bill today is Senate Bill 58. And Mr. Thorley, will you walk us through that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wayne Thorley for the record, Senate Fiscal Analyst. Senate Bill 58 was heard by the committee on March 8th. The bill expands the statutory duties of the Nevada Division of Investigation, or NDI, to include the following: investigate technological crimes as defined in NRS 205A.030, provide investigative services to the division of the Department of Public Safety as determined by the director, and upon request, assist the Department of Taxation relating to taxation and general provisions relating to cannabis, assist the Division of Public and Behavioral Health relating to medical cannabis, and assist the Cannabis Compliance Board relating to the regulation of cannabis. Section 2 of SB 58 also says that the chief of NDI shall furnish criminal investigative services to include the interrogation with the use of a polygraph upon request of the following: the head of any agency, bureau, board, commission, department, division, office, or other unit of the executive department of the state government, which is authorized or required to conduct criminal investigations, and upon request, assist the Department of Taxation, the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, and the Cannabis Compliance Board for investigations as it relates to cannabis. Testimony was provided by Mr. Pat Conmay, Administrator Chief of the Nevada Investigative Division, who explained the purpose of the bill. Mr. Conmay testified that NDI was already providing services to other agencies at no additional cost. In response to a committee member's question, Mr. Conmay clarified that the division does not utilize a cost allocation or other charging mechanism when providing services to other entities, and is not seeking additional staff or resources if Senate Bill 58 is passed. Chief Conmay agreed to provide information on which state agencies were already receiving assistance from the investigation division, and that information was provided to committee members last week, going back to fiscal year 2017. And I can provide a summary of that information if anybody on the committee would like. There was no testimony provided in support, against, or neutral on the bill. There are no fiscal notes. The effective date of Senate Bill 58 is upon passage and approval, and there were no amendments offered or provided on the bill. The committee's motion would be to do pass the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Thorley. Are there any questions or comments from any of the committee members on Senate Bill 58? Senator Kekeffer.
Mr. Chairman, if Mr. Thorley could do a quick summary of the response from the agency regarding the distribution of those, I think it would be good to have that on the record.
Wayne Thorley for the record, Senate Fiscal Analyst. So during the hearing on March 28th, Chief Conmay provided testimony indicating that current statutory language enables Nevada's chiefs, our sheriffs, chiefs, chiefs of police, district attorneys, and the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, and the Department of Education to request investigative services. However, because there are no other options, the Division of Investigation has historically provided investigative services for other state agencies and entities also. The Division of Investigation is primarily funded with general fund appropriations, and any investigative services provided upon request is, as I mentioned, is not charged to the requesting agent entity. In fiscal year 2017, the Division of Investigation reported providing investigative services on 656 cases. In 2018, that number was 906. In FY 2019, the number was 813. In 2020, that number was 788. And year to date in FY 2021, that number was 535. From FY 17 through FY 21 year to date, the total investigatory requests reported by the Nevada Division of Investigations is 3,698. These requests are largely broken out into four main areas. Task force, on which the Division of Investigation serves. Assistance requests to the various state agencies. Requests to conduct polygraphs. And then requests to assist with vehicle thefts. Those are the four main areas in which the Division of Investigation responds to requests for investigatory services.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for that request, Senator Kiefer. Thank you for clarifying that, putting on the record, Mr. Thorley. Any other questions from any of the committee members? Senator Sievers-Gansert?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the fiscal note 0, because it sounds like they're doing the work already. Is that correct? But they weren't in statute, so they were extending services, but now they're catching statute up with the work they're doing.
Wayne Thorley again for the record, Senate Fiscal Analyst. Yeah, there was no fiscal note provided by the Division of Investigation on this bill. Mr. Conway did testify that they would be able to absorb any costs related to any potential increases in requests for investigatory services as it relates to this bill.
Okay, because when you read the language, it looks like a significant expansion. But again, there's no fiscal, and the numbers you just gave us, it sounded like you categorized, but you didn't categorize them by the requester. You categorized them by the types of investigations. So I don't know if we have any other information on that, but I guess if the office is going to turn in a 0 fiscal note, it looks like an expansion unless they're already doing it and we just didn't receive the information in that manner.
I can provide some additional information about the investigative assistance request by requester, if that would help the committee as they evaluate this bill. For the 5 fiscal years that I previously mentioned from FY 2017 through year to date in FY 2021, the majority of the investigative requests have come from local law enforcement. That accounted for 45% of the investigatory requests for assistance. The next largest group was state law enforcement. That accounted for 24% of the requests for investigative assistance. Task force requests, these again are task force largely related to narcotics on which the Division of Investigation serves, accounted for 18% of the assistance requests received by the agency. State boards accounted for 7% of the investigative requests. And then state agencies accounted for 3% of the request for assistance. The remaining of the requests accounted for 1% or less of the total number of assistance requested by the Division of Investigation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sievers-Gansert. Thank you, Mr. Thorley, for that answer. Any other questions or comments on Senate Bill 58? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to pass.
Move to pass.
Senator Dennis moves to do pass.
Second.
Second from Senator Canizaro. Comments or questions on the motion? Senator Kiefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have concerns that these investigations are not cost allocated to the agencies that are requesting them. I think if we're providing this service on a statewide basis, that might make sense as an accounting method and ensuring the costs are appropriately distributed to the agencies that are receiving that service. Maybe not at the local government level where we're part of a task force or something like that, but certainly for state agencies, that would be appropriate at some future time. But I don't see anything that would prevent me from supporting this bill because of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kiefer. Any other questions or comments on the motion? All right, seeing none. Mr. Thorley, could you please take a vote?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Dennis.
Yes.
Senator Kiefer.
Yes.
Senator Goycochea.
Yes.
Senator Hammond.
Yes.
Senator Ratty.
Yes.
Senator Severs Gansert.
Yes.
Senator Canizaro.
Yes.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Yes.
Chair Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Thorley. And Senator Severs Gansert, could you take the floor statement for us, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. That is the last agenda item we had for work session this morning, which brings us to our final agenda item, which is public comment. And let's give a minute to see if we have anyone on the line to make public comment before we wrap up this meeting this morning.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. The public line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time. We will stand by for just a moment for you. Chair, the public line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. With no callers on the line for public comment, that brings our meeting to an end. And I thank you for all the members for participating this morning. And let's go on and enjoy Billapalooza. Thank you very much.